First of all, I would like to wish everyone Dashdele greetings.
首先呢，先向大家问候吉祥如意。
And very happy to be here in France for the second time. My first visit was last year, and this time I'm coming here for the second time to join in the Sakyamalam Prayer Festival, which is starting very soon. And this time I'm very happy to also be traveling here, visiting here with my family, and also the lamas all around.
很高兴呢，能够第二次的来到法国。第一次来到法国呢是在去年的时候，那今年呢是第二次来，就是参加这个即将要展开的萨迦祈愿大法会。那同时也感到非常的欢喜，能够和我的家人还有呢随行的僧团呢一起呢来拜访这边。
And so as requested today, I will be giving the teaching on parting from the four attachments. It's a very important mind training. And also we'll be giving an initiation on the orange colored manjushri.
我今天呢被要求就是要给予这个远离四种执着的教授，那这是一个非常重要的这个心法教授，同时呢会给予这个菊文殊菩萨的这个随许灌顶。
And so this is very important because the mind training on the parting from the four attachments encompasses the whole Sutrayana path to enlightenment. So there is nothing which it lacks, and the whole Buddhist path, you can say, is complete in it. And this very special teaching was given by Arya Manjushri, the Buddha or Bodhisattva of wisdom, to Sachin Kungwan Yingbo, one of the founders of the Sakya tradition.
那这个远离四种执着呢，是一个非常重要的心法教授，他总集了一切这个经圣这个教授的精华，所以我们也可以说呢，一切的佛道修持呢，都集合在这个教授当中。那这个教授呢，是由文殊菩萨，也就是呢这个智慧的本尊呢，他所传授，他所传给的这个萨迦贡感仁波，也就是呢这个萨迦派的奠基的这个祖师之一。
And so the story behind it is that Sachin Kungwan Yingbo's father, Wankwantru Gyalpo, was responsible for founding the Sakya tradition. He passed away when Sachin Kungwan Yingbo was very young. So therefore, Sachin Kungwan Yingbo still had a lot to learn. And therefore, Sachin Kungwan Yingbo's mother appointed Bari Lodzawa, great Tibetan translator, to serve as the Sakya throne holder meanwhile, and also teach Sachin Kungwan Yingbo. And so during that time, Bari Lodzawa told Sachin Kungwan Yingbo that he must become a great master, and so therefore he needs to practice the Tao.
那这个故事是这样子的，就是呢，萨迦派的这个创立者呢，空觉伽波，他在萨迦贡感仁波很年轻的时候呢，就已经过世了。所以呢，当他过世的时候呢，萨迦贡感仁波还有很多要学习的部分，因此呢，他的母亲呢就任命这个大医师巴利大医师的作为暂时的这个萨迦法王代理的萨迦法王，同时呢也任命他的作为萨迦贡感仁波的这个老师。那个时候呢，就是巴利鲁扎瓦呢告诉他说呢，就是他应该要学习，那为了呢增长智慧呢，应该要来做这样的修持。
And he told Sachin that in order to practice the Dharma, he needs to have in order to understand the Dharma, he needs to have knowledge. And in order to acquire knowledge, he must practice or rely on the deity known as Manjushri, who is the embodiment of the wisdom of all of the Buddhas.
那为了巴利罗扎瓦呢，告诉萨迦贡感仁波说呢，为了要 了解佛法，你需要具备知识。那需要获得的这个知识呢，你必须要依止文殊菩萨的修持，也就是这个智慧本论的这个修持。
And so in that way, Sachikumwan Yimbo practiced Manjushri. In the beginning, there were many obstacles to his practice, but those were later cleared through the practice of Buddha Atala. And finally, after several months of practice, Sachikumwan Yimbo directly perceived Aya Manjushri surrounded by two bodhisattvas.
那透过这样的萨仙公满仁波呢，开始修持这个文殊菩萨作为他的这个本尊的修持。那起初呢，为了要平息一些障碍，他也依止了这个不动明王的这个修持。那透过这样子的修持呢，在6个月之后呢，萨仙公满仁波呢亲自的见到了文殊菩萨，周围呢伴随着2尊的这个菩萨。
So when Sachikumwan Yimbo saw Manjushri, Manjushri gave him a teaching. And in this teaching, Manjushri said, if you are attached to this life, you are not a true spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to cyclic existence, you do not have renunciation. If you are attached to your own well-being, you do not have the mind of enlightenment. And if you have grasping, you do not have the view.
那当呢萨仙公满仁波呢见到文殊菩萨的时候呢，文殊菩萨呢给予他这样子的这个教授。文殊菩萨告诉他说呢，若执着此生，则非修行人；若执着轮回，则无处离心；若着起目的，则无菩提心。那执着心升起呢，则是登天地。
And so when Sachikumwan Yimbo contemplated on the meaning of this teaching by Manjushri, he understood that the entire path taught by the Buddha is complete in these 4 lines.
所以当萨仙公满仁波禅修文殊菩萨所给予的这个教授的时候呢，他明白了一切诸佛的教授呢都总集呢在这4句话当中。
So this is the teaching I will be giving first, and before we start, I start explaining the teaching, we will recite the lineage prayer of this teaching.
所以呢，这是今天呢所要给予的这个教授。那么呢，现在在教授开始之前呢，我们呢会先念诵这个远离4种执着教授的这个传承祖师祈请文。我天上边老马仁波切大地是我的人生我念结束无所不见如常不死周圆满满的法座上给要是多根波长美，要也见所见真上扬，要做所面顺当所也他见色难见。多月见见真我，切多玛尼巴萨呀呀月呀桑孙松。这三国人天作人作，阿弥陀佛，全经常，爱见中，
耶格苏耶斯拉哟ze门巴，大愿王就法殿经上这个法也是样子。也是否跟着你在巴马人巴塞拉塞。上方佛耶玛给嘎勒珠，天人萨贤苏玛颂，天玛玛给嘎真达达，这愿我跟嘎。发现光明，现在要定他们经，虽然多心能云多见高速，光也住。 世间有人诸邪人，先要了解别上人，三马诸。所住阿有他云那天别那么别罗僧真多西，天门那有金属，所属谁人？所给所给所到所就给给给见上天所给所到。圣贤好知自王人人愿让灵。所以这些人听到是各个人间当天扫码。
So with this, we have now completed the lineage prayer. And this is very important because starting from Manjushri, the teachings have been passed down from master to master up until the present time. And all of these masters have made great efforts in continuing the lineage and continuing passing down the blessings of this teaching. And as for myself, I was fortunate to receive this teaching from my own teachers, such as His Holiness the 41st Sakya Rinpoche, and also the late Venerable Geshe Abe Rinpoche. So today, with remembering the kindness of these masters, I will be sharing this teaching with you all.
那以上呢，我们就完成了这个传承祖师祈请文的念诵。那事实上呢，这个传承祖师的祈请呢是非常重要，因为呢，从文殊菩萨开始，然后历经了这个世世代代的这些上师，那一路呢传到当今的这些这个传承上师们。那他们这些上师们呢，都付出了很大的努力，来延续了这样子的传承，来呢传递文殊菩萨的这个加持。那我自己本人呢，非常的幸运，能够从我的老师，像是呢第41任萨迦法王，以及呢天界阿倍尔切这些上师的这个座前的领受这样子的教授。所以今天呢，意念着这些上师们的恩德，那我将呢把这个远离四种执着教授呢传授给各位。
So the first line, which is, if you are attached to this life, you are not a true spiritual practitioner. So with this, it clearly shows that in order to become a true spiritual practitioner, in order to practice the Dharma correctly, one must not have attachment to this life. One should do it for the sake of enlightenment and future lives.
那在这个教授的第一句当中呢，提到说，若执着此生，则非修行人。那他就清楚的点明说，如果你想成为一个真真实实的修行人，如果呢你要正确的来修持佛法的话，那你不应该呢对此生，不应该对现在的这个投生呢带有任何的这个执着。我们修持佛法的目的呢，是为了这个众生，是为了这个来世能够修行。
For example, some people practice the Dharma in order to gain wealth, some practice in order to gain followers, some practice the Dharma in order to become famous and enjoy this life. And so all of these such type of practitioners who have such motivations, this is not correct. This is not true Dharma practice. When we practice the Dharma, it should not be out of attachment to this life. There should be no grasping to this life, because we should understand as Dharma practitioners that all of these qualities or benefits that one can attain in this life do not have much essence to it.
有些人呢修持佛法的目的是希望能够获取财富，有些人修持佛法是为了能够获得更多的追随者，或者是呢想要让自己成名。那透过修持佛法呢来就是在此生当中享乐。如果是用这样子的方式，这些修行人的话呢，他们并不是正确的。如果具备这样子的发心的来修持佛法的话呢，并不是正确的。一个真正的修行佛法的人呢，不应该对此生呢有执着，不应该执取此生。我们要知道说呢，此生呢并没有这个真正的精华或什么目的呢，值得我们呢去执取。
People who do not practice the Dharma only focus on this life, achieving goals for the benefit of this life. And so if we, who are Dharma practitioners, also only think about this life, we are not much different from them. So therefore, as a Buddhist and a non-Buddhist, there needs to be some differences. And one of the main differences between Buddhists and non-Buddhists is that Buddhists believe in rebirth, and we speak of the law of karma. And so therefore, if you do good deeds, you attain good results such as happiness. If you do negative deeds, you attain negative results such as suffering. And all of the deeds we accumulate in this life will affect our future lives.
那些不修行佛法的人呢，他们基本上都是为了此生当中的目标呢来做努力。那如果我们修行佛法的人也执着于此生的话，那我们就跟他们呢没有什么太大的区别。那事实上，作为佛教徒， 跟作为非佛教徒最大的差别就是，我们作为佛教徒，我们相信有来世我们相信的这个因果，我们相信业的法则。也就是说，如果你从事善行的话，那你就会得到善果，就好比说是快乐。如果你从事恶行的话，就会得到恶果。比如说承受痛苦等等，而且呢，我们要清楚的知道说，我们此生当中呢所做的一些行为呢，都会影响到我们的来世。
Because if we really think about it, it's not worth being attached to this life. We can think of the example of a traveler who is on a long journey. So we can, for example, there is a traveler, and this person is going on a long journey, and they have not reached their destination. They are very far from reaching their destination, so they must take rest for the night at a hotel, for example. And so they check in the room, and they enjoy the food and the services in the room. But they cannot stay there forever. Eventually, they must check out of the room and move on with their journey. So likewise, this is similar. Our life is similar to that, because the moment we take birth, the moment our mind inhabits this body, it is similar to the guest checking into the hotel room. And just like the guest will enjoy the hotel during their stay, we enjoy many things in our life. But just as the guest must eventually leave the room and move on with their journey, we also must eventually leave our body and must die, and to move on with our journey into samsara.
如果各位仔细来思考的话，便会知道说呢，此生当中没有什么是值得你去执着的。举例来说，我们可以这样来看，就好比说一个旅行的人，他呢踏上一趟呢很长途的这个旅程。那在他还没有达到目的地之前呢，他可能需要比如说在夜晚的时候，他可能会需要休息，那他就呢在这个一个旅馆当中居住。所以当他呢到旅馆的 check in 之后呢，他可以享受旅馆里面的食物，他可以享受旅馆当中的这个设备，但是他不可能永远停留在这个旅馆里面。他隔天呢还是要check out，然后呢继续他的这个旅程。那就好比像这样，就是我们呢当我们这个接受了这个此生的时候呢，当我们的心呢跟着身体呢融合进入这个此生的时候呢，就好比是这个旅客呢就是确定到了这个旅馆。那总有一天呢，我们也像旅客一样，必须要check out，就是当呢我们的这个心跟身体呢分开的时候，就是当我们这个死亡的时候呢，我们的身跟这个心跟身的分离，然后呢会继续前往在轮回当中的旅程。
So what is death? Death is the moment when the mind and the body separates, and the body is left behind, but the mind continues and continues to exist and takes on a new birth. So this is what death is. So it's the separation of the body and the mind. And so therefore, in life, we don't really, and many times we don't think about the Dharma, we don't think about impermanence, and we are attached to following samsaric pursuits, such as gaining wealth and so on. But if you really think about it, at the moment of death, you cannot take any of the achievements you have worked hard for with you. For example, you have to leave all of your money behind at the moment of death. You cannot take that with you. You have to leave your family behind. You have to leave your friends behind, and you must travel alone after death. So therefore, if you think about it in such a perspective, you will come to understand that it is not worth being attached to the pleasures of this life.
那所谓的死亡呢，指的是当我们的身体跟我们的心分离的那个时刻呢，叫做死亡。当死亡来临的时候呢，我们的身体必须要抛弃，必须要舍弃，但是心呢会继续存在，心呢会继续呢前往这个下一个投生，前往来世。所以呢，死亡指的是说，当我们的身体跟我们的心分离的那个时刻。 那有些人呢，平常呢不想着就是佛法的修行，而只是专注在获取这个轮回世界当中的成就，比如说像是获取财富等等。可是如果我们仔细思考的话，当我们面临死亡的时候，我们在此生当中所积累的一切成就，都是没有办法带走的。当我们面临死亡的时候，我们呢没有办法带走我们所拥有的金钱，我们没有办法呢带走我们的家人，没有办法带走我们的朋友，这些一切都必须要舍弃。然后呢，我们必须要一个人呢独自的继续的下一趟的这个旅行。所以，如果我们用这个角度来看、来思考的话，那我们便会知道说呢，此生当中的事物呢，并不是呢值得我们去执着的。
So therefore, if we can constantly think about impermanence, which is the law of nature, then that will help to diminish our attachment to this life. And in that way, we will be able to practice the Dharma correctly with the right motivation.
那如果呢，我们反复的来观修思维无常的话，这就能够帮助我们减少对于此生的这种执着。通过这样呢，那我们便能够呢依止的佛法的修持，能够来正确的修持佛法。
The second line is, if you are attached to cyclic existence, you do not have renunciation. So what this basically shows is that in order to attain, whether it be enlightenment or arhathood, or basically if you want to transcend samsara, if you want to transcend suffering, you must abandon attachment to the pleasures of samsara.
那第二句话呢，讲到说呢，若执着轮回，则无出离心。那也就是说，如果你想要证得阿罗汉的果位，或者是圆满真悟的果位的话，那你就必须要呢去除轮回当中的这个痛苦。那也就是说，你必须先舍弃呢轮回当中的种种安乐。
Renunciation is the only way out of suffering. And so therefore, we first need to understand what is wrong with samsara, what are the faults of samsara. Because usually we do not think about it. We just see samsara and we see it as being a very pleasurable place, a place where there's much happiness and many beautiful places, many beautiful things, and many beautiful experiences. And it's all we see it as being happy, but in reality it is not as it seems, because if you really look into the nature of samsara, all of the states of samsara, there's no place where you can say that there's truly any happiness.
那升起出离心呢，是能够呢从痛苦当中解脱的唯一的办法。所以，为了要升起出离心，首先我们要先知道轮回当中的这个过患。平常我们并不知道说轮回当中呢有什么样子的过错。我们呢把轮回看似一个非常安乐快乐的这个地方，在轮回当中有许多美好的事物、美好的经验。但是如果我们能仔细来思考的话呢，那在本质上呢并不是这个样子。在轮回世界当中的任何地方都没有办法找到的真正的快乐。
For example, if you look at the state of the hell realms, all of the sentient beings there experience great suffering either due to great heat or cold. And the beings of the hungry ghost realm experience suffering due to great hunger and thirst. The beings of the animal realm experience suffering due to stupidity, and also because other animals eat each other. And also then there's the demigods, the beings of the higher realms. They suffer due to losing the war with the gods. And the gods themselves suffer at the moment of death, and due to having clairvoyance and understanding that following their death, they will fall into the lower realms and suffer. And if you look at the human realm, which we live in, there is always, as you can see, suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death.
那如果我们的仔细来看的话，地狱道的这个众生呢，承受了很大的痛苦，像是呢，非常热或者是非常冷等等的这种极大的这个痛苦。那恶鬼道的众生呢，无时不刻都拥有这个饥饿跟口渴的这种痛苦。那畜生道的畜生道的众生呢，他们的有愚痴的痛苦，还有其他像是呢这个大的动物会吃小的动物这个的这种痛苦。那即使是呢这个三善道的众生，像是修罗道的众生呢，他们依然会拥有极大的痛苦，像是他们总是会输给他们这个在打斗的时候总是会输给这个天人。那天人的他们一样拥有很大的痛苦，比如说在当他们面临死亡的时候，因为呢他具备神通的关系，那他会知道说他的寿量即将完结，那在来世他即将呢投生到地狱来承受很大的痛苦，所以这个对他心理上有很大的折磨。那人道的众生也是就好比说我们经常可以看见的人道的众生呢，有具备生老病死等等不同的痛苦。
And all of the suffering in the human realm, you could say that it is, you could say it narrows down to the physical suffering and the mental suffering. So, for example, the poor people who do not have shelter or place to live, who lack clothing and food and so on, they have great physical suffering. And then you might wonder that if you're rich and you're popular, you're very comfortable and there's much happiness and there might not be suffering, but that is not the case. For the rich and the famous people and the powerful people, they have mental suffering, if not physical. And therefore, they always are worrying about losing their wealth, becoming, less popular, losing their fame. There are many, many sufferings of the powerful people as well, which is very clear, we can see nowadays.
那就人道的众生的这个痛苦呢，又可以总归成了身体上的痛苦以及呢心理上的痛苦两种。那比如说呢以一个贫穷的人来说呢，他可能会面临到没有地方居住，或者说他没有衣服、没有食物等等这种身体上的这个痛苦。那如果呢，你认为说一个有钱人、一个有名的人他总是呢非常舒服的安住的，那他就没有痛苦的话，那这是不正确的。因为呢，我们可以看到说，有钱的人呢，或许没有身体上的痛苦，但是他依然拥有心理上的痛苦。比如说呢，担心自己的权利会丧失，或者说担心自己呢，名气丧失，变得不有名等等。那这是非常清楚的，在现在的社会当中呢，各位都可以清楚的看到。
And especially humans always are suffering because they are always searching for something that they do not have. So in our life, we are always trying to achieve something, to get to some state of happiness, and we are trying to get something we do not currently have. And we try to acquire wealth and so on in our lives. But once we get it, we finally get what we want, we are not content with what we have. We want more. And in that way, we keep on searching for more things that we do not have. And in that way, we do not get the chance to actually enjoy life. And then eventually we die. It can be due to natural causes or also due to sudden accidents and untimely death. And once we die, we continue, even after we die, we continue searching as we search for a new life to take. And in that way, in our journey in samsara, we are always searching.
那人们呢总是呢面临着许多的痛苦的原因在于说，我们总是想要去寻找那些我们所没有的东西，比如说像是我们所这个没有的地位、没有的财富、没有的快乐等等。 就是我们总是呢汲汲营营的在找寻我们现在所没有的这个东西，像是呢追寻财富。但是呢，一旦呢我们呢拿到了我们现在所没有的这些东西之后呢，不过一会儿我们又感受到不够满足，我们觉得不满足，所以我们要在这个继续的这个寻找。那人生呢就是这样，在不断的寻找当中呢，那我们就没有办法真正的享受我们的这个生命。那在死了之后也是不断的在寻找呢新的来世、新的这个投生。那我们总是呢在轮回当中，就不断的在寻找呢我们现在所没有的东西。
Actually, samsara, you could say, is like one of King Ashoka's prisons, because once upon a time, King Ashoka had a prison, and it was actually a garden, and it was, in reality, the garden was a prison. And it was unlike any other prison, because any visitors who entered the garden were asked by the gods of the garden, and they would ask the visitors, what will you do once you enter the garden? And if a person says that I wish to take a walk, then once they enter the garden, they must take a walk and can do nothing other than that. They must continue walking and cannot sit. If they sit and take rest, they will be punished. Likewise, if someone says, I wish to eat, they must eat and continue eating non-stop. If they stop, they are punished. And so the same goes for sleeping and sitting. So, if you take a walk, actually taking a walk is pleasant, but if you take a walk for too long, it becomes suffering. Eating is nice, but if you eat too much, you get full. And when you continue to eat once getting full, that is also suffering. And sitting is nice, but if you sit for too long, your bottom will hurt and you will wish to stand up. So in this way, all of the visitors who went inside there must continue to do what they promised that they would do.
那其实呢，轮回世界呢，就好比呢，这个阿育王的其中的一个这个监狱阿育王的这个监狱呢，它是一个像是花园，但是呢，事实上它是一个监狱。那任何人想要进去拜访这个花园的人呢，都会先被问说呢，进去要做什么？如果一个人说呢，我想要进去散步的话，那你呢就只能呢不断的这个走路，你不能做任何的事情，其他的事情你不能坐下，你不能休息，你必须要一直这个走路，不然你会被惩罚。那如果一个人说呢，他想要吃东西的话呢，那就必须呢持续不断的吃东西，一直吃，不能停下来。如果停下来的话呢，就会面临处罚。那同样的，如果你说想要睡觉，或者是呢想要做其他事情，都一样，就是你必须要持续不断的这样子做。但事实上呢，比如说散步走路呢是一件很舒服的事情，但是你如果一直不断的走很久的话呢，那你会觉得很累。那一样吃东西是一种享受，但是如果你吃太多的话呢，你会就是觉得很饱。但你很饱之后你还继续吃的话呢，那你就会感受到痛苦。那坐着也是，坐着很舒服，可是你坐很久的话，你会觉得屁股痛，你会想要站起来等等。但是呢，就是在这个阿育王的这个监狱里面呢，你只能做呢你承诺的那一件事情，然后你必须一直持续不断的做下去。
So in that way, all of the visitors to the garden are actually suffering greatly. But however, for those people who have not entered the garden, when they take a look into the garden, they see that some people are taking a walk, some people are having a meal, some people are sleeping, some people are sitting, and it looks very pleasant. But in reality, there's only suffering going on in the garden. So likewise, samsara is similar to that, because when you just do not inspect samsara clearly, if you just take a sudden look at it, it seems pleasurable. It looks like a very happy place to live. Looks like there are many things to enjoy. But if you really look into the true situation of samsara, you can only find suffering.
所以呢，透过这样，就是在那个花园，在那个监狱里面的人呢，都承受着非常大的这个痛苦。 可是呢，外面的人呢看起来就是这个花园里面呢，有些人一直在走路，有些人在吃饭，有些人坐着等等，看起来好像是很快乐的。从外面的角度来看的话，但事实上他们的承受的其他的这个痛苦。那同样的道理，轮回世间就好比是这个阿育王的这座花园一般。那看起来好像有很多值得美好的事物，这个值得享受的这个事物，但是如果呢仔细的来分析的话，你会发现说呢，事实上这轮回当中的一切的本质呢都是痛苦，但是它看起来好像是有这个快乐的样子。
So it is by understanding the faults of samsara, finding distaste for the pleasures of samsara, that one will seek a happiness beyond samsara, an everlasting happiness, because this happiness of samsara cannot be called everlasting. It cannot be true happiness because it is not everlasting happiness. True happiness should be an everlasting happiness. All of the happiness in samsara is actually a suffering. It is called the change of suffering because it is happiness for one moment, but due to any cause and conditions, it can immediately turn into suffering.
那透过这样子了解轮回的过患之后呢，我们会想要去寻找呢处于轮回当中的快乐。那事实上呢，轮回当中的快乐并不是真正的快乐，它事实上都是有漏的快乐。真正的快乐必须要是无漏的快乐。所以我们也可以说，轮回当中的一切的快乐呢，事实上它的本质呢是痛苦，也就是所谓的坏苦。也就是说呢，它现在看起来是快乐的，但是呢，它随时都可能转变为这个痛苦的这个样子。
And so, if one finds distaste in samsara and therefore seeks the true happiness and wishes to transcend samsara, then that is called renunciation. That is the renunciation mind, and that is something that all Dharma practitioners should look forward to achieving, because without the renunciation mind, Dharma practice is sort of like worthless. Without the renunciation mind, you cannot get rid of suffering. You cannot get rid of suffering. You cannot get out of samsara. You cannot attain any of the higher states such as an arahathood or pratyeka Buddhahood, and of course you cannot attain Buddhahood. So in order to attain any of those states, and especially Buddhahood, you need to have the renunciation mind first.
那知道轮回的过患，然后升起这种想要离开轮回的想法呢，叫做出离心。那事实上呢，出离心是所有修行人都应该试着要去升起的。因为呢，如果没有出离心的话呢，你不可能从轮回当中的出离解脱。你想要证得阿罗汉的果位，想要证得菩萨的果位，想要证得圆满的佛果位等等，首先你就先具备这个出离心，要有出离心，你才有办法呢离开轮回，然后来获得这些的证悟。
You may practice the Dharma and perform good deeds without the renunciation mind, but that will only lead to the future good rebirths within samsara and not beyond samsara. So therefore, we should always try to have the renunciation mind.
或许你可以，就是即使没有出离心，你依然可以修持佛法，依然可以呢，从事的善行。可是这样子的善行呢，只会把你带往呢来世，就是更好的这个投生。但是呢，依然在轮回当中，所以呢，想要出离轮回世间的话呢，那一定要具备的出离心。
And then the third line is, if you are attached to your own well-being, you do not have the mind of enlightenment. And this is very important because this is the main point of Mahayana Buddhism and the teachings of the greater vehicle taught by the Buddha. And this is because the Buddha taught, and this is the situation that all sentient beings which exist have at one point been one's mother in a past life. And this is because samsara is beginningless. Samsara has been beginningless because we have the causes for being reborn in samsara, which is ignorance. And we've had ignorance from beginningless time. Therefore, samsara has also been beginningless. And because samsara is beginningless, we have taken rebirth countless times. And during each birth we take, we change our parents and our family. And so therefore, because we have taken so many births, we can certainly say that any sentient being that exists, whether we have seen them in this life or not seen them, any sentient being, all sentient beings have all been one's mother or father, a friend, a relative, and so on in one's past life.
那在这个教述当中，第三句话说呢，若着己目的呢，则无菩提心。那其实这是一个最重要的部分，也就是呢，在大圣的教授，在大圣佛法当中呢，最重要的一个部分就是菩提心。那我们可以这样讲，就是我们相信说呢，一切的有情众生在过去都曾经做过我们的母亲，因为呢，轮回世间呢，是无始的。那这个原因是因为呢，我们所拥有的这个轮回的因，也就是无明呢，它是无始的，所以呢，从无始以来就具备这样子的无明，所以呢，我们不断的在这个轮回当中呢，受生，我们在轮回当中呢投生过无数次。那每一次受生的时候呢，我们都会转换我们的父母、家人等等。那因为我们在轮回当中受生无数次的缘故，所以我们可以说呢，就是一切的有情众生都曾经做过我们的母亲，做过我们的父亲，做过我们的朋友以及亲人等等。
So this is something that all of the practitioners of the Mahayana or greater vehicle must understand. It is that all sentient beings have at one point been one's mother. And just as a good child would want to repay the mother's kindness, likewise, the Bodhisattvas also wish to repay the kindness of all sentient beings. But they understand that in order to repay their kindness, the best way to repay their kindness is to get rid of their suffering. But in the Bodhisattva's current state, they are not capable of helping them in such a way, because they themselves are still in samsara. They themselves are still subject to suffering. And so they understand that the only true position in which one can help them transcend suffering is by attaining full enlightenment. And so therefore, with this in mind, the Bodhisattvas aim for enlightenment, full enlightenment as their goal. And the motivation behind that is to save all sentient beings from suffering.
所以呢，这是一切大圣的行者呢，都必须要了解到的，就是一切的有情众生呢，都呢曾经做过我们的这个母亲，那就如同呢一个好的孩子会想要去回报母亲的恩德，那菩萨们也希望能来回报曾经做过母亲的众生们的这个恩德。那菩萨知道说，回报的最好的方式就是能去除众生的这个痛苦。可是呢，你现在的所具备这个能力呢，没有办法做到这一点，因为呢，菩萨本身呢也仍然在受苦，仍然在这个痛苦之中，所以菩萨呢立下了这样的想法，就是呢希望要证得圆满的证悟跟解脱，来呢利益一切的有情众生。目标呢是希望获得圆满的证悟，而在这个背后的发心呢，就是为了要救助众生呢，从痛苦当中呢获得解脱。
So therefore, we must all try to generate the mind of enlightenment. And in order to generate this, it is good to understand the equality of all sentient beings. Usually in this world, we put great differences between all the different types of people based on their color, or their gender, or their race, and so on. But instead of looking at the differences, we should try to look at what we all have in common. And there's one very important thing that all sentient beings have in common. And that is that just as oneself does not wish to suffer, all sentient beings do not wish to suffer. And just as oneself wishes to always be happy, all sentient beings also wish to be happy. And this is something that we all have in common. And if we can keep this in mind, we become more open to understanding sentient beings. Whether we have met them or not, we will be open to all of them, and we will be able to share our love and our compassion towards all sentient beings.
所以呢，我们都应该要试着来升起这个菩提心。那虽然说呢，我们会觉得说这个世界上的这些众生呢，有许多不同的类型，我们依照他们所拥有的不同的肤色、不同的性别、不同的种族等等来区分呢，就是众生有很多的这个不同。但是呢，与其去看这些不同，我们应该试着去看相同的部分在哪里。那有一点呢，是一切有情众生都相同的，那就是呢，我们自己不希望承受痛苦，那同样的众生也都不希望呢经历这些痛苦。那我们自己希望能够获得快乐，同样的众生们也都希望获得快乐。那这一点呢，是我们自己以及一切的有情众生呢都相同的这个地方。通过这样子来思维的话，我们会变得更开放，更容易呢去了解一切的有情众生。不论我们有没有实际上见过他们，透过这样去思维呢，将帮助我们能够将自己的这些慈心以及呢悲心呢，来向一切的有情众生的延展。
So therefore, in order to attain full enlightenment, we must have the bodhicitta. And it is the same, because the Buddha taught the law of karma. So enlightenment cannot just suddenly arise, and it cannot arise without effort. It cannot be attained without effort. It has to have its cause. It has to have its causes and conditions. So its cause is, of course, the spiritual potential we have. All sentient beings have the spiritual potential to attain enlightenment. From beginningless time, we've always had this spiritual potential. And to the whole purpose of Shakyamuni Buddha teaching the Dharma to others is to show the path to attaining enlightenment. Why would he teach and show the path? It is because we are capable of attaining enlightenment, just as he did. If we are not capable, he will not, go to great efforts to show us how to attain it. So if we can put the right efforts, which are the conditions to attaining enlightenment, if we can practice the Dharma with the bodhicitta mind, then we can certainly attain enlightenment, because bodhicitta is the cause and enlightenment is the result.
所以，为了要能够呢获得圆满的证悟，那我们应该要升起菩提心。那我们知道说呢，佛陀教授了业的法则，佛陀教授了这个因果，因此我们知道说，想要获得圆满的证悟呢，同样的需要具备这个因果的这个条件。那其中一个条件就是呢，众生从无始以来都有具备成佛或者说证悟的这个可能。那释迦牟尼佛的降生，然后示现的正的佛果位，事实上就是为了要向众生展示说呢，一切的有情众生呢都有成佛的可能。因为我们具备这样的条件，所以佛陀向我们展示的这个示现证悟。如果我们没有具备这样的条件的话，佛陀不会向我们展示说呢证悟成佛的这个部分。所以呢，透过佛陀的示现，我们知道说呢，透过佛法的修持，透过呢具备菩提心来做修持的话，那我们将有可能的这个圆满的佛果位。因此呢，菩提心呢是成佛的因，而呢证悟这正得圆满的佛果位呢是菩提心所导致的结果。
So in order to have good bodhicitta, we must first have good compassion, the practice of meditation of compassion. And the Buddhist or Mahayana idea of compassion is that it is the thought in which one wishes for all sentient beings to not only be free from suffering, but to also be free from the causes of suffering, which are the negative deeds. And this thought is called great compassion.
那为了要能够升起菩提心呢，首先我们必须要先升起的这个大悲心。那在佛教的观点来说呢，所谓的大悲心指的是说呢，希望不只是希望一切的有情众生能够远离痛苦，更希望他们能够呢远离痛苦的因，也就是恶行。所以这样子，希望众生能够远离痛苦以及痛苦因的这种想法，都被称之为呢大悲心。
And in order to have good compassion, we must first have good loving kindness, and that is the that all sentient beings not only be endowed with happiness, but also be endowed with the causes of happiness, which are the good deeds.
那为了要能够升起的大悲心，首先应该要升起大慈心，也就是说呢，愿一切的有情众生不只是具备快乐，同时还要具备快乐的因，也就是呢这个善行。
And although we must train to direct our loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta towards not just one or several, but all sentient beings. It may not be easy to think about all sentient beings in the early stages of our practice. And so therefore, that is completely fine. We should first try to train in loving kindness towards our own parents, or the most loved member we have in our life, whether it be family or friends and so on. And once we get good at that, we must extend the loving kindness to more people. You can extend it to more friends or relatives. And once we get good at that, we then extend it towards even our enemies, and then gradually to all of the people, such as our neighbors, and then to more people, like all of the people in the country, and then to more people, such as all of the people in the world, and then to all of the beings existing in all of the universes. In that way, we can train to gradually extend our loving kindness, compassion, and such practices towards all sentient beings.
所以呢，我们应该要试着去培养这个我们的慈心跟悲心，不是只对一个人，或者是只对一些人，而是要对一切的有情众生。虽然说呢，在一开始的阶段，要对一切的有情众生升起这样的慈心悲心呢，是有困难的。不过这没有关系，我们应该呢先从这样的开始。首先呢，先对自己的父母亲，对自己的这个家人呢，培养慈心跟悲心。那如果呢这做得不错的话，那我们可以再更进一步对一些其他的人像是这个朋友等等的升起悲心，然后慢慢的呢往外扩展到像是说对我们的敌人一样的可以升起慈心跟悲心，然后呢再扩展到比如说邻居，然后这个国家的其他人，以及呢这个世间当中的一切这个众生，通过这样子呢逐步的向外扩张。到最后呢，我们可以呢，将呢慈心跟悲心呢，延展到一切的有情众生。
Then finally, the fourth line is: if you have grasping, you do not have the view. So this is that it means that we should not, when we practice and meditate on the ultimate state, we should never have any grasping to any kind of view, because if we grasp or think that this is this and this is not this, and have basically any kind of conceptions, that is not the ultimate view. So therefore, we must try to avoid having any conceptions when we practice or meditate on emptiness.
那最后呢，第4句话说到呢，执着心生起，则是正见立。这指的就是说呢，在针对这种就近见地的这个禅修的时候，我们不应该只取任何的这种偏见，或者说任何的妄念，因为只要有任何的妄念升起的话，那这就不是呢真正的这个见地。那指的就是说呢，当我们在禅修就近的见地，在做关于空性的禅修的时候呢，我们不应该呢有任何的这种执取。
As I mentioned earlier, the main cause of being born in samsara or being stuck in samsara, the main reason is because we have ignorance from beginningless time. And we have this ignorance is mainly the grasping to the self. We believe that I truly exist. There's a truly existing I, me. And because there's such thoughts, because I truly exist, there's my life, this is my life, this is my body, this is my things, these are my family, these are my friends, and these are my enemies. And because there's an I, then there will become an other. So that person is my friend, that person is my enemy. And all of these conceptions arise. And from that, samsara comes into being.
那就如同我前面有讲过说，我们之所以会生在轮回当中的原因呢，是因为有无明。我们从无始以来就具备这样的无明。这个无明呢，也就是说所谓的我执。我们相信说呢，所谓的我是真实的存在，我是一种实有。因为相信呢，我是一种实有、真实的存在，所以呢，我们会觉得说，这是我的生命我的身体、我的东西、我的朋友、我的敌人等等。那因为有了这个我，那相对而言就有了这个他，那就因此呢产生这种二元的这种情况。因为这样子二元的升起呢，而使得呢这个轮回呢就这样持续下去。
So why do we believe that there is an I? This conception simply arises because we have a body, and all of these body parts are together and heaped as one kind of many body parts, such as the hands, the head, the legs, and so on. They come together, and then we just name a person with any kind of name, and then we get attached to that name and think that I truly exist. And this is just a simple kind of misunderstanding or conception that we make.
那为什么我们要相信说这个我是真实的存在的？这个原因可能是因为说，因为我们有身体因为身体的这些不同的部分呢组合成一个身体，然后我们把这个身体的命名，给它一个名字。那因为呢我们呢过度的去执着了这个名字因此呢我们产生了认为说呢我呢是实有的这一种的错误的念头。
So when we contemplate and examine on the true nature of things, we must delve more deeply into this kind of situation, because we must look where is the I that I believe truly exists. Is it within myself, or is it outside of myself? We will not find it outside of ourselves. So if we try to look within, one should question oneself, where is it within? Is it in the head? Is it in the hands? Is it in the legs? Is it in the body? Where is the I? And if you sort of separate, you can imagine separating all the body parts. And if you try to find the I, which you are so attached to, in any of the body parts, you will not find it. And you will understand that this I that I'm very much attached to is simply just nothing but a name that I've named when all of these body parts have come together as a heap, and it is nothing more than that.
所以呢，当我们禅修的时候呢，我们应该要就是做更深入的分析，到底呢这个所谓的我，它到底在哪里呢？它是在我们身体的里面，还是呢在我们身体的外面？那当然了，这个我不会在我们身体的外面。那如果它是在身体的里面的话，那我是在哪里呢？它是指的是手，还是脚，还是身体的哪一个部分呢？所以如果我们这样子把这些身体的一一分开来看的话呢，就并没有一个实际的这样子的我。所以我们必须要了解到说，所谓的我呢，事实上只是一种对于名相的这个执着，因为呢身体的聚合，我们认为说呢有一个实有的我，但事实上并不是如此。
So it is this attachment to a truly existing I that causes us to be stuck in samsara, to be reborn again and again in samsara. So we must get rid of this thought of a truly existing I. And basically, just like we get rid of the thought that I truly exist, we should also get rid of the concepts that things truly exist, not just oneself, but outer things, people, animate or inanimate objects. All of these truly exist. We should get rid of all of these thoughts.
那就是因为呢，有这种对于一个我是实有的执着呢，我们被困在这个轮回当中，然后呢，不断的这个投生。因此呢，我们应该要舍弃这种呢我是实有的这个想法。那不是只有呢舍弃说我是实有，包括其他的这些事物，以及呢这个情器世间的这个一切的这个东西呢都并不是的实有，都并不是真实的存在的。
It doesn't mean that from now on we must deny that people exist or things exist, but this is speaking in the ultimate sense. In the relative sense, we must continue to live as we have, but we should try to see things not as in being nothing, that is a mistake, but we should try to see things as being illusory. But in the ultimate sense, all of these things that we see do not have any essence to it. There's nothing true to it. There's no true existence to any of it.
那这并不是说呢，我们现在开始就要否认说呢，人跟事物的所有通通都不存在，并不是这样子的。这里讲的说它并不是实有的，指的是呢圣意的见地。那就世俗谛而言呢，我们还是知道说呢，人跟事物的这个存在，只是说呢，我们应该要视他们的是了解到说，他们实际上就是像是一种幻象一样，那不应该对这些的事物呢去产生的这种执着。
So once we get rid of this thought that things truly exist, we may fall into the category of thinking that things do not exist, and we get attached to that thought. That is also incorrect. In the ultimate view, there is no such thing as this is this and this is not this. It is beyond all words, thoughts, and conceptions. So therefore, it is the true nature. You cannot say it is truly existing, but you can also not say that it isn't truly existing. And because of that, you cannot say that it's both existing and non-existing, nor can you say that it's neither of it. So if we can be free from any of these four extremes, then we have the right view. This is what Manjushri taught to such a point.
所以，当我们试着要这个舍弃这种事物是实有的想法的时候呢，很有可能我们也会这个堕入的这种事物的非实有的这个念头。但是事实上呢，并不是如此。这个真实的圣意的见地呢，是离于文字、离于言权、离于任何造作的念头的。那我们必须要知道说呢，所谓的这种就定的见地呢，它是非实有，也不是不实有，然后呢，不是皆是，也不是皆非。如果我们能够离于这四边的话呢，那这样子的这种见地呢，才是呢所谓的正确的、真正的这个见地，也就是呢文殊菩萨所呢传授给三千供养仁波的这种见地。
So with this, I've completed the teaching on parting from the four attachments. This is considered as the king of all mind trainings, because as I mentioned, the whole path of attaining enlightenment, the whole Sutrayana path, is completed within these four lines. And following this, I will bestow the Manjushri initiation. And this is very important because just as Bali Lotsawa told such a in order to understand the Dharma, we need to have knowledge. In order to have knowledge, you need to practice Manjushri. So in order to practice Manjushri, we need to first and best receive the initiation of Manjushri, which allows us to practice Manjushri. So therefore, following this teaching, I will bestow the initiation, but we will have a break first, and then following the break, we will start the initiation.
所以呢，以上呢，我总结了今天的这个关于呢远离四种的执着的这个开示。那事实上呢，远离四种执着的是一切心法当中，可以说它是心法之王，因为呢，就如同我前面说过的，它总集了一切的这个证悟的方法，总集了一切的精舍的这个教授，在这四句话当中。那就如同呢前面讲到的，接下来呢会给予文殊菩萨的这个随许灌顶。那就好比是像巴利鲁扎瓦巴利大医师告诉萨奇波玛仁波说呢，为了要了解佛法，你必须要拥有智慧；为了要能够升起智慧，你必须要做文殊菩萨的修持。那今天呢，我们为了要进行文殊菩萨的这个修持呢，我们首先应该要接受呢文殊菩萨的这个灌顶。那么等一下呢，就会向各位呢传授这个文殊菩萨的这个灌顶。但是在那之前呢，我们可以先稍作休息，然后呢休息回来之后呢，我们来进行文殊菩萨的这个灌顶。